blastmusic247.com. We're changing the industry, one artist at a time.
Hello, friends. It's Thursday. When I tell you, I feel like Thursday is coming around every 3 or 4 days. But exciting times. Today, we're going to talk about insurance. And I'll jump in just a minute because it's going to be jam packed. Have your pen and paper because you'll want to take some notes. So I want to remind everybody, and then for those who are new, I am Nichon Mitchell. I am a licensed attorney. My license is in Tennessee and Mississippi. My Texas license is pending. A lot of the concepts that I talk about on this podcast have general application. It's information to help everyone, kind of no matter where you are. But of course, seek independent information from an attorney in the jurisdiction that you're in. But I'm happy to field questions and direct you to give you information of what you should be asking because sometimes we don't even know the question, right? We don't even know what we don't know. So I'm happy to direct you on what you should be asking in your jurisdiction. And in terms of real estate, I have a Texas real estate license and I've had a Mississippi broker's license. And then for insurance, I have a Texas insurance license and a Tennessee insurance license. So tonight we're talking about insurance. I always on this podcast want to talk about topics that I get a lot of questions about in my profession, in my practice, and I want to get information to the people that's helpful to you in your everyday life so you can operate and so you can handle some of your problems and concerns, and also so that you know things you can reach out to me about if you need representation or help. So with that being said, we're going to talk about insurance, and I'm going to ask this question and give a 5-second pause because we got a lot of content to cover. But who knows what New York Life, Aetna, and AIG have in common? Okay, time for the answer. What they have in common is those very popular, very well-known insurance companies built their wealth and their company on the foundation of insuring slaves back before emancipation. There are a lot of insurance companies in this country who got their start and built their prominence on insuring slaves. So how that worked was, and there's some companies that have acknowledged this and they've issued statements about this. And how that worked was they would insure slaves like property. They would collect the premiums. And this is early. This is the 1830s, 40s, 1850s. And that money that they collected as premiums, because they collected a lot of money, but they didn't pay out a lot of money for the slaves. When they died or whatever, they didn't pay out a lot of money. So that allowed them to amass the amount of money they needed in order to become the big conglomerates they are today. A lot of the American insurance industry was started on the backs of insuring slaves. So insurance played a large role in sustaining slavery in this country, and it played a large role in building the insurance industry in this country. I'm going to put in the chat 2 links that tell this story, and then you all can follow those at your leisure. You can follow them at your leisure, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so there that is. Now let's talk about like life insurance and some general principles. Now, tonight, I hope to cover life insurance, health insurance, auto, and home. Now, my license for insurance is life and health. The general information I'm going to tell you about homeowners insurance and auto insurance is just from my experience with litigation. And because I don't have a license for those different lines of insurance. Insurance agents get licensed to sell particular lines of insurance. Mine is life insurance and health insurance. Okay. So, um, generally, okay, so what insurance is, it's a way to manage risk. So when you get insurance and you're being given a quote, you want to check the details of that quote very carefully because you're balancing managing risk with paying the premium. What does manage risk mean? That means you're balancing how likely is something to happen so that I need to insure it. So a quick example is we recently got a quote for homeowners insurance, and I think we were it was the conversation was about the deductible that we need to pay. Hey, do you want to pay 2%, 3%, or 4%, something like that, right? So a lot of times what people will do is they will pick the lowest deductible because that's something they can afford. So say the deductible is the lowest one is $500 and the highest one is $3,000. So people pick the $500. Well, the first thing that does is it raises your premium. The second thing that does is it may not be necessary because in terms of the homeowners insurance we were looking at, it was the risk of fire. Okay. Well, our house is up to code. We're responsible people. We've never had a house fire. We don't have children in the house. There's a lot of reasons why. What is the likelihood we're going to have a fire at our home? It's very, very low. So why would I pay an extra premium for a low deductible on something that's probably not going to happen? So we set it at a higher deductible so we could have a lower premium because the likelihood of it happening is very low. So what you would want to do in that case, this applies to homeowners insurance, car insurance, anything where you have a deductible. You kind of want to have a savings account, which everyone should have an emergency fund anyway. We all know that. I know it's hard to get to and do, but this is another reason to have one. You have an emergency fund or a savings that says, okay, well, if something happens, I got the $3,000 over here. But and you can build up to that during the year that you're paying the policy or whatever. But to the extent that you keep your deductible low, you're going to pay a higher premium. Okay, so this is the rule for whether or not you can get insurance on something. Because people be trying to insure other people, and sometimes they be trying to insure things they can't insure. In order for you to be able to get insurance on something, you have to have what's called an insurable interest. So you have to have an insurable interest in either the person or the property. And what that means is if you lost that person or that property, you would suffer a financial loss if it was damaged or you lost it, right? So if you have ownership, custody, or control of something, then that's an insurable interest. And so if you have a financial interest in something, if you are a blood relative to someone, or if you are a business partner to someone, you can insure those interests. So there's a lot of different types of insurance companies out there. This may be worth you guys knowing. I want to get to this part in my notes. I'm sorry, you guys, I may be looking away, but I have notes. This is a really big topic. So there's different kind of insurance companies. There's insurance companies, there's stock, there's mutual, which you guys have heard of, there's nonprofit service companies, there's reinsurers, and insurers that do excess and surplus lines. And then there's government insurers. The government insurance, that's stuff like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, National Flood Insurance, the FDIC that insures your bank accounts. So there's at least about 10 different types of insurers. I just listed about 6. But you want to know what kind of company you're getting insurance from, because some of them, like a mutual company, you're a part owner. You may get dividends if you are with that company. Other companies, you don't share in the ownership. You don't get dividends. You're just paying them money to insure you, and you don't necessarily get anything from it. So, I'm sorry, I was looking at a note. So you want to know if that matters to you, you want to know what kind of company you're getting insurance from. You may get several quotes, but you want to know, is this a company that's basically based on stock and they're trying to, the goal of the company really is to make money for their shareholders? And so their policies and different things like that are not really beneficial to me? Or is this a mutual company where I benefit as a policy owner? I share in the wealth of the company because I get dividends and different things like that. So you'll want to, you know, look at that, ask the insurance agent that, or tell them that's what you're looking for. Hey, I want a quote for life insurance. Only give me quotes from mutual insurance companies. Only give me quotes from, because I'm a stockholder in this company, give me a quote from that company. And then that way I can pay premium into a company where I already own stock and, kind of get another benefit that way. So just so you know, there are different types of insurance companies. They're not all the same. They're not all set up to be the same. They don't all have the same goal when it comes to serving their clientele, whether it's they're issuing insurance policies to companies or to individuals or whatever. So know that. Okay. So I put in part of the advertisement about life insurance being good for building wealth. So life insurance is the most cost effective way. It's the way most of us who weren't born wealthy or haven't accumulated a lot of wealth in our life, it's the most cost effective way to transfer wealth generationally. Life insurance. So you transfer the wealth from one generation to another. And life insurance is also a way where it can provide a lifetime annuity that never expires. This is kind of how this works. And I encourage you to see a financial planner about one part of it. The other part of it, if you guys know that I'm on a goal and my passion is trust and wills for people, you would do this inside of a trust. Okay. You get life insurance, preferably a whole generation would agree to insure themselves for the next generation, but one person can do it. You can get a life insurance policy, the proceeds of which will be managed by a trust. The money is going to be accumulating and making interest and stuff, but you would put that into a vehicle that's accumulating money, an investment or anything like that. You only take part of it out and give it to the generation. The other part is still sitting there. And don't forget it's earning interest. So you may never even take the principal out. You may always only take the interest out and you give that to the next generation. And that just keeps going. So when the money is sitting there, look, math ain't my strong suit, but this is kind of how it works. You might have $1 million sitting there that, by the time the next generation comes up, turns to 3 million. You're not taking the whole 3 million. Um, the 3 million may be earning interest at five or six or $700,000 a year or something. So you spread that out across the generation. The other money is still sitting there. It's doubling and doubling every so many years, right? So that's why they say it's an endless annuity for generations for the family, because you can say, hey, everyone in the generations, they can go to college, they can buy a house, they can start a business, they can do something like that. But that's the general format or scheme for how it's set up to be generational wealth. Somebody has to start it. That somebody can be you. You can have a policy that's $500,000, $1 million. A lot of times how much you can take out depends on, unfortunately, it's a kind of a bad way to say it, but how much your life is worth. How much your life is worth to the people you leave behind or whatever you're trying to do. That number can be developed and determined by the insurance company when they do the intake. Like if you make $20,000 a year, they may not allow you to insure yourself for $1 million because that's not going to be the value of the loss, should you pass away from an accident or something like that. Okay. So, but in any event, someone has to start this generational wealth thing, right? This is one way to do it. So, a lot of times in certain communities, people will say, I ain't leaving them all that money. I'm not, they're not going to try to kill me so they can get all the money and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we all probably need to do better in a lot of these areas. And there's a lot of talk about generational wealth, but people are not really doing anything. And to be honest, it's hard to develop, to make or earn the amount of money we need in order to start a generational wealth cycle. It's hard for the average person to do that just from the sweat of their brow alone, just from you working. even your entire lifetime. By the time you raise kids and pay bills and taxes and all that kind of stuff, there's not much left over for most people. This is the way to start something that will benefit people generationally. Yes, you may not yourself benefit from it, but to the extent that your children, your grandchildren, everyone going forward can, this is how we get in a position. And see, for a lot of us who don't have it, we don't have it because someone didn't start it. One or two or three generations ago, they didn't do it. And so we're still sitting here, in a certain socioeconomic status trying to make it happen. But we can be that blessing for the generations to come. So that's a general framework for how life insurance is the basis and the most cost-effective way to start and to transfer generational wealth. Um, Let me make sure before I move on. Let me see. Looking forward to so hi, hello everyone, saying hi. I love my son every week. He says hi, mom. Hey, sweetie. Let me see. I don't think I see any questions yet. Okay, so make sure you click the like button. Yes. Okay. So I hope everyone understood that. If you have questions about that, go ahead and pop them in the comments, and I'm gonna keep rolling about life insurance. So life insurance, the most common reason people get it is it's a death benefit. They use it to replace their income for when they pass away. They use it to leave something to their family, to what? To pay off a house, to make sure their kids can continue to be raised. Like the whole time before, like when my kids were little, I had enough insurance that was like, hey, whoever gets them, you pay the house off, you can live in a house, you'll get a $3,000 a month stipend to help raise them, that kind of stuff. People will have life insurance to replace their income that they would have had, and to give that to either a spouse or whoever is going to take their children or whatever. That's the most common purpose for life insurance. It is definitely the base. It's the basis of any good financial plan and any estate planning. Life insurance. Um, Now, you can have regular life insurance to pay off your house, but they also have what's called mortgage protection insurance, and like a whole separate policy you can get, and that's gonna pay the house off when you die, and then you can have a whole separate life insurance policy that's different money. Another reason people have life insurance, if you've done this wealth building or you have any amount of assets, a lot of times people have life insurance to pay the death taxes, the all the fees and things associated with someone's death. They'll have enough life insurance to cover all that, so you don't have to touch the original assets in order to pay any estate taxes or anything. So people may own buildings, commercial property, houses. They may own expensive jewelry, expensive artwork, different things like that. So what you don't want to happen is for your family to have to sell that stuff in order to pay the taxes. So you can hold on to all of the original assets and have enough life insurance to pay the taxes and everything else that has to happen. In most instances, life insurance is taken tax free. So if you leave a $500,000 to your family, they're going to get it tax free. So the biggest mistake a lot of people make that do have life insurance is they don't designate a beneficiary. You must designate a beneficiary. So that's the person who you want to get it. It can be one, two, or three people. You have a primary and a contingent. You can do it 50-50. You can do it 1090. You can split it up however you want to, but you need to have a beneficiary listed. Your trust can be the beneficiary of the life insurance policy. If you have a bank account, if you have, and usually at a bank account, they'll call it either a beneficiary or a POD, payable on death designee. You want to always fill those in whenever whenever you have a monetary asset, there should be a way to list a beneficiary for that asset. So make sure that you're doing that. Let me see. So I have notes this week, you guys, because last week when I did divorce, child support, and custody, I forgot to discuss cohabiting and common law marriage and so many different things. I'm gonna have to do a second episode. So I had notes last week, but there was so much to talk about. I still left that out. So this week I'm trying to not forget anything, and so I have my notes. So let me see. Can use life insurance as a death benefit. Tax deferred accumulation. Yes. Okay. Also, too, there's a way to withhold life insurance. Let me let me first talk about the types, and I'm just going to talk about the most common types real quick. You guys, there are so many different types of life insurance plans you can get. What most people know about is term, whole life, and then some people know about universal life. So, of course, term insurance is insurance that you get for a specified term. I want a 10-year policy. I want a 20-year policy or something like. So what's happening is if you die within the term, they'll pay the benefit. If you die outside of the term, they're not going to pay the benefit. So why would somebody get a term policy for 10 years, say? Maybe, you know, sometimes when you get divorced, most times, a lot of times, one parent is required to carry insurance until the child gets 18. So maybe when you get divorced, the kid is 8 and you just need a 10-year term policy, and that'll pay, which is basically meant to cover the amount of child support you would have paid until the child was 18. It's meant to replace that income. So you can get a 10-year policy. The other reason people get term policies is because they're much, much cheaper. And as with saving and investing, the earlier you get the policy, the better. Because with insurance, the younger you are, the cheaper it's going to be. If you're 25 and get a 30-year policy, it's you're going to pay almost nothing for it. But if you try to get a policy at 45 or 55, that policy is going to cost a lot for the same time, like 30 years, 20 years, right? Whatever. So the younger you are, you'll pay that rate. That's a level term. You'll pay that for the entire length of the policy. But the older you are, you're going to pay more for the entire length of the policy because, in theory, what they say, it's more likely that you'll die um, faster if you get it later in life. That's just the thinking. That's how that works. So with a term policy, they have something called increasing term, level term, decreasing term. So that what that is the benefit amount. Another thing you could do is when you first have your kids, you can get a term that's a decreasing term. What that means basically is as they get older, the value of the policy will go down because really you only get, well, I shouldn't say really, because we just talked about getting insurance in order for generational wealth. But a lot of people who do it and may have issues with paying for insurance. They get it until their kids get to an age where they can take care of themselves, and then they don't worry about having insurance for their kids anymore. So that age may be 18, it may be 21, it may be 25, where you say, okay, now I'm not going to insure myself enough to take care of these kids. I might want to leave them 10 or 15 or 20,000, but I'm not trying to leave 500,000. These insurance decisions are very personal choices on what you want to do, and so, but that's why somebody would get a decreasing term, level term policy, is because as the people get older, or as your situation changes as life goes on, and you don't need as much insurance, then the amount will go down and your premium will go down. With whole life insurance, it builds cash value. Okay, that's the one. The whole life insurance that builds cash value, and that one is in effect then for your entire life or until you reach age 100. So that one, a lot of people will use a whole life policy in order to fund their life. If you get that when you're young, you get it at any age. If you get it when you're young, it's much cheaper and it's building that cash value. You can actually borrow against that to start a business, to buy some investments, or to put a down payment on your house, to do anything. A lot of people use a whole life policy in order to be their own banking system. You borrow from your whole life policy, you pay it back. Say you borrow when you 21 to pay to go to nursing school. And I know you're like, how do you have enough at 21? That's hopefully it's some people out there. Y'all know y'all get them Gerber whole life plans in the mail when the baby come. Y'all can, if your grandparents got you one of those, by the time you 21, it could have some value. Okay. But so people at a certain, so say you use it, you can use it to pay for your car in cash, pay your whole life policy back. Then the next thing you do is I'm going to use it to start this business, pay your whole life policy back. It's a way where you can be your own banking system. So there are different kinds of whole life policies. You get there's one called an adjustable whole life policy. That's the best of both worlds of a term life and a whole life. And because with that, the insured, you determine how much a policy you want, and you determine what amount of premium is affordable. And then the insurance company develops something that fits your needs. And then, so as your needs change, you can adjust that policy, but it's always accumulating money for you. So, yes, I see Latasha's asking about a universal life. That's actually, look at that, it's next on the list. Um, Universal life, you can increase and decrease the policy amount as needed. It has an insurance component and a cash component, and that allows for partial withdrawal. Now, the other thing that you can know about a lot of these policies is they can have an investment component to them. So I generally want you to know that, because those agents are special agents that deal with, you can have life insurance policies that pay out that are linked to the stock market. And so universal life policies are really, they're just as good as whole life policies. And those are the ones, that's with the partial withdrawal, where you can do that. There's, so like I said, when I said there's so many different policies, and what they're doing now is they are mixing them and blending them so much so they can put products together that people can actually use, that can help them. It is worth your time to talk with an insurance agent and say, hey, in the jurisdiction you're in, and say, hey, what does a whole life policy look like for me? And how can I get one? How fast will it'll accumulate value? I'm just really, because of the time we have, given you a broad brush. This is one of those instances where you should know kind of what's available out there, so you can then go now and do some more research. But like I said, there's policies linked to the stock market. There's policies that allow you to borrow against them, that allow you to continue taking funds out, and it'll actually pay the premium itself out of the funds that are in there, as long as there's money in there. There's so many different kinds. Okay, hold on. I see the question about variable life. Hold on, because I didn't have that one on my list. 2 seconds. I got my notes over here. Actually, what I'm doing is, on the break, I am going to, which we're almost at. This time goes so fast, which we're almost at. And I'm gonna look at that one on the break and come back. But let me tell y'all real quick about some special policies that maybe people don't know about. Now, there's one that's called joint life. Another way they describe joint life is called first to die. That's a policy that a married couple can get, and the premium should be cheaper than each of them having their own policies. The policy premium is going to be rated based on the average of their two ages. And so what that is you have the one policy is joint life. It's first to die. It's only going to pay after the first death. It's not going to pay after the second death. So that policy is a better one. Well, I shouldn't say better. Check with your agent and see. But generally, it's going to be cheaper than both parties having their own policy. And that juvenile life, that's the one I was talking about. There's a common one called a jumping juvenile life, where the amount increases usually at the common age of 21. But that's like that globe life one that you can get when you're a baby. And the amount will jump when they get 21, but the premium stays the same. And that's the good thing with that policy. Now, so far, what I've been generally talking to y'all about policies, but what you should know is there's individual policies and then there's group policies. So you can have an individual term or a group term. You mostly have group policies through your employer. And but another way to have a group policy, like if you're an independent contractor or something like that, you may be part, like I'm a member of the Bar Association, I'm a member of other different organizations. They may have an opportunity for you to get life insurance. That's a group. A lot of times it's easier to get insurance when you're part of a group, because the way the group is set up, it's easier to qualify. And a lot of times, like when you're with your employer, you pretty much automatically get in that. Sometimes you're individual and you're trying to get a policy. That's when you have to start getting into maybe blood work or health tests, health questions, stuff like that on certain policies sometimes. So a lot of times if you're part of a group or you can find a group to join through there, a credit union, if you're a member of a credit union, they'll have group policies. So all the policies I'm talking about, there is a facet of it where there's individual and there's group, even health insurance. You can individually get your health insurance. Even I was not talking about the marketplace. You can just call up Blue Cross Blue Shield and ask for an individual policy. But if you get it through your employer, that's called a group health insurance plan. So, which a lot of times it's easier to get than it is if you're trying to get it on your own. So, I want to talk about exclusions and riders. I talked about let okay, exclusions and riders real quick. So you can get riders added on to your policy. Like you can get them that says, ones that'll help you. Now, if you add them onto your policy, they're going to affect the premium. It's most likely going to increase the premium. Some people get riders because they have very risky hobbies. They mountain climb, they race cars, they do things like that. You have to kind of add that on. So that's an example of a rider that you would add on. Um, Riders for helping you to pay the premium if you lose your job, different things like that. So always ask about, and I'll get some more examples. I was jotting my notes down faster. I'll get some more examples, but see how fast this time goes. But just know that there are riders out there for just about any situation. And so why you need a rider is it's a special exception or a special thing that's not already included in the regular policy. It has to ride along with the policy in order for you to have coverage. If you don't add the rider, you won't have coverage. So like I said about the dangerous activity, if you have a life insurance policy, generally it's going to say, we're not covering you if you out here racing cars. If you're an IndyCar driver, if you mountain climb, if you do all this other kind of stuff, you have to add that on because remember the insurance company is trying to hedge its bet on risk. So they can't, if you are engaging in riskier activity, more riskier than just everyday living, you have to pay more to engage in that risk because it increases your likelihood of one, dying if it's a life insurance policy, or two, being injured if we're talking about a disability policy. So whenever you're doing anything that's outside the normal framework of a regular life insurance policy, you have to add it on and it's going to increase your premium. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and do the break right here. This is a 3 to 4 minute break and it's a music break. I like those. It gives you guys a chance to either use the bathroom, get a drink, get your questions together. I can check the comments for questions. I can get to my notes on the variable insurance policy. And then we can come back from that. I always like the artists that the producers pick. I think the producers. So we'll do that right now. On the other side of the break, we're going to finish up with life insurance. We're going to talk about health insurance. And then I'm going to cram in real quick tips for our homeowners and auto and wrap that up at the end. Okay, guys.
Okay, girl, get it together. I'ma stay by your side. If it's trouble, I'ma ride. Gotta do it for the culture. Unity should coincide. Gotta do it for the culture. I'ma stay by your side. Gotta do it for the culture.
Who's a Jew and who's not? That seems to be the new topic. But I'd rather talk about who profits from violence on them singles you copping. Man-made holidays commonly deceive you in shopping. We in such pain, we seek out naproxen. Try to switch to PEA and doctors treat it like it's treason to stop it. Big Pharma feeling the karma. It's the season of logic and we waking up, clean the house, mentally steaming the carpet. This the reconstruction era, breathing the carcass. Read me the charges. Kyrie retweets an image and they're seizing his dollars. Stephen A says I'm loving this and he even hollers. Restrict stricter punishment. Oh, and Shaq, he's an accomplice, saying Kyrie should be suspended. Me being honest, media egregiously takes brothers, even hermanas, and pins them up against one another to feed the piranhas. I mean that Kyrie stormed the Capitol with thieves and Obamas. I'm watching all this happen at the crib in my pajamas like
I'ma stand by your side. If it's trouble, I'ma ride. Gotta do it for the culture. Unity should coincide. Gotta do it for the culture. I'ma stand by your side. Gotta do it for the culture.
Can I trouble you for a moment in time for us to huddle to? My people been through more ups and downs than the letter W. God, your people fell out of touch. We scared to summon you. We worship false idols that encourage us to be drug induced. The truth is hard to rebuttal, yay, so they muzzle you. Call you an unsolvable puzzle and they unpublish you. Try to make you earn approval with hurdles you jump into. But wait, make your decision like turtles, cause they can tug at you. But they know who you are, it's a power struggle and suppers do. Reclaim your seat at the table, pour you a cup or two. Take the largest portion of justice because they hunting you. Don't forget to finish that spinach dish in the supper stew. Leave the humble pie for the shot with the hitting colors too. Once you discover self with compass, you'll notice something new. They don't want you smarter, cause all of it's meant to comfort you and keep you running in a virtual bubble that's puncture proof.
I'ma stand by your side. If it's trouble, I'ma ride. Gotta do it for the culture. Unity should coincide. Gotta do it for the culture. I'ma stand by your side. Gotta do it for the culture.
Dear LeBron, some say you the GOAT. I think that label's a joke for any human, cause every human's the greatest that's woke. So I'm confused by the words that you chose to use in your quote. You don't respect it, Bron, who you protecting? To not support the truth that your brother spoke is pathetic. I guess stealing people's identities copacetic. You act as if Kyrie is a random user on Reddit that posted a random documentary to say he said it. But when it contrary, he's been mostly prophetic, especially with that jab that you took. Do you regret it? You know how many adverse reactions needed a medic? Your boy Kyrie's with the ancestors comedic. They burned our temples, took our Prius paper to shred it. And you ain't say a word when they called him anti-Semitic. Brown with everything else, you're so versatile and eclectic. John Sally stood up for Kai, your boy Shay Shay ain't expected, but
I'ma stand by your side. If it's trouble, I'ma ride. Gotta do it for the culture. Unity should coincide. Gotta do it for the culture. I'ma stand by your side. Gotta do it for the culture.
Hello. Are we back? We are back. Alrighty. So, okay, gang. I knew that variable insurance was going to get me, because this is the deal about variable insurance. Okay, so remember when I said that there are some insurance policies that are linked to investments. And okay, so like even though it's a life insurance policy, I'm not certified to sell that because those are really securities. So how they work is they have a component that's linked to the market once again, and they have a separate investment account. They have a separate component besides the life insurance part. So if somebody is selling you a universal or variable, you want to make sure that they're certified and that they have the correct licenses to sell that, because those are securities. So there's some risk with those, but the advantages are they're very flexible in the premium amount, and they can accumulate the cash much faster than like just your basic whole life policy. So that's why you would get one. But those vehicles are probably some of the ways that people are getting to the amount that they need in order to do some of the other stuff I said earlier, like invest in a business, college, whatever, this, that, and the other, or to pass on that generational wealth. So that's the deal with variables. So like for me, I can only sell you like a regular term life, whole life, the decreasing, increasing premium, the stuff I talked about. Anything though that's dealing with investment accounts, anything that's linked to the stock market, anything that's linked to an index, That is a life insurance agent that has special certifications to do those because they are regulated securities. And whenever you start talking about securities and stocks and stuff like that, you need special training and all that kind of stuff. And so I don't do those at all. But anyway, that's what the variable one is. And I knew it when I saw it. I was trying to remember what stumped me was how it was actually set up. What it is it's part investment account, part insurance product mixed together in order to accomplish the goal that you want to accomplish. You can actually tell the agent, I want to have an account. I want a death benefit, but I also want to accumulate money as it goes. And then they'll put you something together, but it will be linked to the market. Okay. My son is funny. He said, is driving a motorcycle normal people living activity? That's funny. As a mother, the answer is no. As an attorney, the answer is yes. As an insurance agent, as long as you are riding it as a normal vehicle, yes. But if you racing it up and down the streets, no, it's not normal activity. So that probably will go more into how you're driving the motorcycle. I think that's funny. Okay. Some other riders that I forgot to tell you about. This one may be important. There's a long-term care rider. Remember, I said a rider is something that you have to add onto the policy. It's going to alter or change the policy because the regular policy doesn't provide for a certain thing. Long-term care, that's insurance or rider that you add onto a policy in case you have to go into a nursing home or an assisted living facility later in life. That is definitely something that the later you get in life, oh my God, the more it's going to cost you. Now, people don't think about getting it in their 20s and 30s. Who's thinking about long-term care? It's very, very, very affordable and manageable if you get it when you're that young. If you get it even as early as probably after 30, it's going to be expensive. And then when people really start thinking about it in their mid 40s and 50s, it's almost unaffordable. But long-term care, that's a rider. And then, like I said, a waiver of premiums. That's if you get to a position where you can't pay the premiums, you lose your job, you become disabled, something like that, they'll pay the premiums for you. So there's different riders for different situations that you have to add on. The biggest lesson from that is, because now you can Google it and find out, right? You can ask your insurance agent about riders. What riders do you offer? And they'll throw them out so that you can see if it's something that you need to add to the policy. Okay. So you guys can still throw questions in the chat about life insurance if we need to. Let's see, great information, driving a motorcycle. Okay, so let me see, I read those articles. Okay, so if I'm missing a question, producers, please flash it up there for me. I'm going to talk about health insurance real quick. And so I'm going to throw some stuff out. I hope it doesn't sound disjointed because, we're coming up on our hour. I may go over by 10 minutes if you guys don't mind. And if my producers say that it's okay, I may go over by about 10 minutes. So, I won't say what mine. Okay, let me say, someone called me and said that they had a tax problem because they were so you guys know under the Affordable Care Act, you had to have insurance. They were penalizing people for not having it. And so they have a tax bill because they had a period where they were not insured, which happens to a lot of us. If you're not employed, sometimes people have a hard time getting insurance. So this person was an independent contractor and perhaps may have been employed, but for whatever reason, they had this tax liability related to not having insurance. So what I want everyone to know is you should be getting a certain form from your employer every year when you get your W-2. I think a lot of people don't know what it is, or they don't pay attention to it, or they throw it away, but you should get it. Me personally, I file mine with my taxes. I looked it up. It's not a requirement that you file it, but you should at least, I'm suggesting, keep it in your records for 7 years, because you can amend your taxes within the last 3 years, but the IRS can go back 7 years. This form is called a 1095-C, and then there's a 1095-B. 1095-C is called the Employer Provided Health Insurance Offer and Coverage. And if you work for an employer with at least 50 employees, then they're going to provide you with this form. It shows whether or not you had insurance coverage during the preceding year. So, of course, filing that with your taxes lets the IRS know that you had insurance. There's also a form though called a 1095B, and that shows that either that you were offered coverage at the job or that the coverage they have does not meet the minimum requirements of the Affordable Care Act. If you're at an employer and they have insurance that doesn't meet the minimum requirements, then you're not required. You don't get penalized for not having the insurance. Now, watch this. You can still buy the insurance. You can still get the health insurance. You'll still have some amount of insurance. It's just not compliant with the standards of the Affordable Care Act. That doesn't necessarily mean quality wise of the care you get. It means it's not compliant with some of the things like the requirement to cover preventative care, the requirement to let your child stay on to their 26, different things like that. So if the employer gives you that, then you should hold on to those, because should you ever get a fine, and I don't ever want to get too deep into politics, but this administration ain't been the best at running things, and you might get a tax bill this year from 2 years ago that says, hey, you didn't have health insurance. If the government is trying to up the revenue that they collect, if they're trying to get more collections in and they're behind on their audits 2 or 3 years, you might get something that says, hey, you didn't have insurance 2 years ago, here's your fine. You want to have these forms to be able to give them out. The other thing I think people ignore, when you get insurance, whether individual or with group, they're going to give you something called a certificate of insurance. Keep that. That's important. It was proof that you were covered under a policy for a certain period of time. And believe me, because I did healthcare law for several years, it can become an issue of whether or not you are covered and by what kind of plan. So just have a little file in your file cabinet and put those in there and hold on to those documents, because they don't look important, but they are when you need them. Okay. So just some critical things, or just some things you should know about health insurance is there is the basic health insurance, but you can also get things like critical illness insurance, hospital confinement insurance. Parents, when your kids go on trips, you want to know the school, the rec center, the Boys and Girls Club, whatever organization, Girl Scouts, whatever they're associated with, there's something called a blanket policy that's going to cover like the entire group of the kids that go on a field trip. So a lot of times while they busy giving you a waiver, talking about, I waive and I'm not going to sue y'all if something happened to my child on this field trip. Your question for them is, do you guys have a blanket insurance policy? Does the school district, does the Boys and Girls Club, does Boy Scouts, do y'all have a blanket policy that's going to cover my kid if they get hurt out here or something happens? So that is an option. Critical illness, you can insure certain things like, cancer, certain different ailments. You can get insurance for those. Just know that. I'm checking my notes to see what I want to talk about. I really would be remiss if I didn't discuss the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, people call it Obamacare. It's the Affordable Care Act. That's what we're going to call it. Okay. Which he really modeled it after Mitt Romney's program in Massachusetts, a Republican. So the Affordable Care Act, we all want the Affordable Care Act to stay in place. We want to fight for it. People talk about it and say it's a really bad thing and the exchange is bad. I just think it's because people don't understand insurance and they don't know how to shop for and look for a really good insurance policy. Really quickly, the Affordable Care Act lets you keep your kids on to their 26. It keeps them from denying you coverage for pre-existing conditions. It lifted the lifetime max on coverage, which used to be $1 million. Now that cap is gone. One real world quick example, I always tell y'all I'm going to use me. In 2012, I got diagnosed with cancer. I had a very invasive endometrial tumor that wrapped all up inside of my body and attached to all of my organs, and I had a very extensive surgery. Back in 2012, my medical bills were more than $500,000, and I was 37 years old. But for the Affordable Care Act, I would have been uninsurable for the rest of my life. Once I had over $500,000 from one incident, and that was at 37. So prior to 37, I had 2 kids. You had to have my tubes tied by then. I'd had some things before I got to 37. And then at 37, I had over $500,000 worth of bills. I would have been uninsurable for the rest of my life, meaning insurance companies could have said no because you reached your lifetime max of $1 million. And these days, that was in 2012. Now what do the insurance bills cost? And the other thing with pre-existing conditions is it doesn't. So what the Affordable Care Act says is you can't deny somebody coverage because they had the pre-existing condition now, but that doesn't say they can't charge you more because you have it. But who out there knows that being a woman is a pre-existing condition? Having been pregnant before is a pre-existing condition. So insurance companies, it was the wild, wild west out there. So I'll be the first one to say, I'm not saying the Affordable Care Act is perfect, but it's something in place that's starting down the path of protecting people in terms of health insurance and getting them health insurance. Let's all work and talk to our congressmen and legislators about making it better, improving what already got started. So usually whatever the first thing is, it's not the best thing, right? We all can agree it needs improvement, but it doesn't need to all the way go away because we need those protections. I wanted to get that out there about that. The marketplace, you all should be looking at a document that's called a Summary of Benefits and Coverage. And then there's another document called Exclusions. You got to shop these documents and see what they cover. That's the only way to compare apples to apples. That's a whole nother probably show I have to have. I do have a consulting aspect of my business where I help you read all these health insurance documents and pick things and that's best for you and your family. I do have that service. You can connect with me and talk to me about that. It's best that we talk about that before your open enrollment comes, and then we can help you pick the right thing. Let me tell you real quick about exclusions. I'm gonna tell y'all another story about me. We won't call this TMI, but this is just a story. So those of you out there know, because I just kind of tell it. So I had a breast reduction and a lift actually the year before I found out I had cancer. So naturally, y'all, I'm a G cup. Like I had never had implants or anything like that. That's my family, right? Genetically G cup. So when I was in my 20s and early 30s, it was powerful. I could get out of tickets. I could do it. You show a little cleavage, you can get what you want, right? Who out there knows that's right? We know it's right, right? Okay. But starting to get in my late 30s and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, okay, it's too much. I want to do something about it. So people are under the misconception that, you have to have, pain from your straps and this and that, all kind of stuff. Not true at all. So if you look in the exclusions to your health insurance, it's going to say that it excludes elective plastic surgery. And that's what a lot of people think a breast reduction is elective plastic surgery. However, if you look in that part, it'll say except to make both breasts the same size. How many women out there know that most women, both their breasts not the same size? Okay, so you can actually get your breast reduction paid and lift paid for if you just go to the doctor and they see that they two different sizes. You can get it to where you can get it paid for because they're gonna make them the same size. Well, look at that. But people don't know because they don't read. And so now it's my profession to read. It's my job to read, right? But I'm gonna encourage y'all to read these documents. Read your health insurance document. Read all the exclusions. Read everything. But if you look in the back of the exclusions, it's gonna say we don't cover health. It's gonna say we don't cover plastic surgery, but we will make two breasts. We'll cover the procedure to make two breasts the same size. Almost everyone in America got two. That's why these bras come in these shirts be looking crazy, and I love it kind of stuff because most women in America got their breasts are two different sizes. So I'm gonna throw that little tip out there for y'all. Now y'all can go check y'all health insurance and see if y'all can get that surgery. Okay. Let me see. Now, I want to have a whole discussion about the HMOs, PPOs, HSAs, FSAs. If you have flexible spending accounts out there, people use them. That's the best kept thing. First of all, flexible spending account, it will reduce your taxable income. You will pay less taxes on your check. You might as well divert the money to yourself instead of paying it to the government. You divert it to yourself to pay your copays, your deductibles. You can even buy over-the-counter stuff. Even like I said, that breast reduction I had, you can use your flexible spending to pay the deductible for that. You can use flexible spending to buy all your over-the-counter drugs. You can get you don't need a prescription. From the 2020 CARES Act now says you don't need a prescription for the over-the-counter stuff to make it count for flexible spending. You used to have to get a prescription, but look, guys, I was paying for the gym with flexible spending. I had my doctor to write a prescription that said your BMI is 35, it need to be 25, you need to exercise 3 times a week. And so I had that prescription. So I used flexible benefits to pay for the gym. Now, probably today I would still get a prescription for something like that. You could get a therapeutic spa. You can get, if your doctor will write a prescription for it, even if it's over the counter, a dental pick. If you have dental issues, whatever it is, you can use your flexible spending account to pay for that. It's pre-tax money. It reduces your taxable income and you save money that way. That's the tip on that. A health savings account, real quick. If you are young and you are healthy and you don't have access to insurance or something like that, you can get a high deductible health insurance plan. How you do? It's going to be a high deductible, $5, $6, $7, even $10,000. I would say if you're young or middle aged and healthy, this is good for you. But you're going to have a health savings account with it. Put the money in that health savings account. It's going to grow tax free. And at the point that you don't need the health savings account anymore, it converts to a retirement account. So it's dual purpose. And all this information about health savings, flexible spending, this is IRS territory, y'all. That's what this is. I'm looking for the link. I'm going to try to post it in here for y'all. So y'all can go to the IRS website and look at this stuff that I'm telling you. And you can check it out. One of us, healthcare.gov, which is actually really another good resource. Okay, let me see. Copy. Healthcare.gov, another good resource. I'm gonna have another show. They always run because I'm not gonna even have time. It's 6:57. Let me see real quick. Okay, side note, let me do this homeowner real quick and I'm gonna go back to healthcare. Real quick on homeowners, make sure you don't over-insure yourself. I will tell you as a lawyer, when things happen that implicate either homeowners insurance or auto insurance, if you have a lot of insurance, you're a target. We're going to sue you because that's where the money is. So I always keep my homeowners insurance, the max, I keep it fairly low. Now, anybody who know me, I got some friends on here who'll laugh. I tell you, don't come over here trying to fall or nothing else because you ain't getting no money. But I try to keep mine at 100,000. I think that's the minimum or whatever. But some people have theirs at 300,000. Well, if something happens, then you're almost a target. Now, you want to have enough insurance. Don't over-insure yourself. And so that's once again looking at your lifestyle. If you host a lot of parties where people are drinking and they leaving your house after having drink, you probably need $300,000. If you are having events at your house with the blow up things and the kids are jumping and you do that, you got 3 kids, so you doing that 6 or 7 times a year. If you got a pool, if you got a trampoline, if y'all lighting fireworks at that, you probably need $300,000. If you're not doing none of that, you don't need that. So I'm not saying always keep it at the lowest. I'm saying make sure you don't over-insure yourself because you can become a target when there's a lot of insurance. Make sure you're asking for all the discounts you can get on your homeowner's insurance, having an alarm, having energy efficient appliances, having your car and home and all that stuff together. Get all of that. Read your home insurance policy. Just like healthcare, it's going to have the policy. It's going to have some deductions. It's going to have some things it's not going to pay for, some exclusions. You need to know what those are, but you also need to know what it will pay for. Do a home inventory. Take pictures, either save them on a hard drive, have physical pictures, have a home inventory in case you have to replace things. And you I had a 98-inch TV. They're going to be like, no, you didn't. The insurance company going to want to pay for it. Get your pictures out. Side note, have you a fireproof bag or box to keep all that stuff in? Because if you got proof, it don't help you if it burns up in the house. Get you a fireproof bag or fireproof box. which I give to my people. When I do your estate plan, I deliver your documents to you in a fire safe, waterproof container that should survive the fire or flood, and you'll have all your documents that's in there. Your trust, your homeowner's insurance, your birth certificates, your passports, all that kind of stuff you keep in there and you keep it safe. But make sure you do that home inventory. I'm trying to think of what quick tips that I have. Oh, okay, wait, back to health insurance real quick. If you work at a job and you have group insurance and you have like when it's open enrollment time or when you get married, when you have a baby, anything like that, there's a benefits administrator at your job, and that person is probably in HR. It's their job to make sure you understand your benefits, and it's their job to explain the stuff to you. Now, they're not going to necessarily tell you what to pick, but they'll help you get to a place where you understand what you should be picking. They're going to tell you what they offer. Do they have any, and usually there's probably more linked with the 401k benefits. Do they have this option for universal or variable policies? What options do they have for you to pick your own investments and stuff like that? But they're going to explain all the benefits to you. That's their job. Make sure you understand all the benefits, because if we got to be on these people's jobs and we got to work their jobs that we already know we don't want to work, we should at least maximize all the benefits that we can get. And it's somebody there who's usually called a benefits administrator, it's an HR manager. You can ask an HR, whose job it is to help with that, and they will explain the group life, the dental, the vision, all the insurance options. They'll explain all that stuff to you. Let me see what the questions are. Producers, if I'm missing a question, put it up there for me. Let's see. I wish, yes, the what, 702? Okay, let me see if I can figure out any more about the HSA and FSA. You can use them to meet. Oh, let me tell y'all this. Okay, this is what people don't know. This is very helpful. Just went to the doctor with my husband. When I go for myself, I do this. People don't know they can do this. Now, when I do the workshop, it's coming up. It's probably going to be next week about contracts, everyday contracts, and what you guys need to know. You're going to hear this part. Spoiler alert, I'm going to tell it to you today. When you're handed pre-printed paperwork and it's stuff you have to sign, generally they're called contracts of adhesion. That's because you didn't negotiate those terms. They were just handed to you. So if you ever have to go to court on them, you're going to be the favored party because you didn't draft the contract. It was just handed to you. Now that don't mean you're going to have a slam dunk, but it's going to mean that the drafting of the contract, if it's ambiguous, if there's errors in it, if there's a problem, it's going to be construed against the drafter. Okay, but this is what this means. So when you go to the hospital, they give you this form of financial responsibility that says you sign this form because whatever your insurance don't pay, you have to pay. We're not signing that. This is what you do. And I'm going to tell you why I do a side note. This is why you do it. Because between the provider and the insurance company, follow me. Let's just say your insurance company is Blue Cross Blue Shield and your provider is Dr. Smith. Blue Cross Blue Shield and Dr. Smith have an agreement that Dr. Smith will only accept what Blue Cross Blue Shield will pay him for any particular service. So let's just say you are having your tonsils removed. The insurance company says, we only pay $800 for that. Dr. Smith says, okay, I'm going to accept the $800. Now, watch this. The insurance company, when they say you're only going to take what we will pay you, but if the patient agrees to pay more in writing, then that's fine. You can charge them more. Okay, so people don't know that exists, right? So really what you want to do is when it says, I agree to pay any amounts my insurance company won't pay, we don't agree to that. You want to cross that out. And you want to say, I only agree to pay my co-insurance, my co-payments, and my deductible. Them the only three things you obligated to pay. And then there's some more language, and I'm sorry, this is very specific. Y'all got to call me or reach out to me, and I can give you more detail. But you say, I'm only going to pay my co-insurance, my co-payment, and my deductible. I'm not going to pay any amount that my insurance company declines for lack of authorization or lack of medical necessity. Then you want to write in there, only use in-network providers and inform me of any changes. I write that on every time I go to the doctor. This is what you do. Don't do that online registration, because then you automatically, you be signing them documents. It's a little more work, but when I tell you I only get medical bills for my co-payment, co-insurance, and deductible, I don't get no extra medical bills since I started doing this. This is how people end up with all these extra medical bills, because you're agreeing to pay um, an elevated amount that the provider is billing that the insurance company won't pay. But they say you can't charge them that. The insurance company told the provider, you can't charge our member, your patient, you can't charge them unless they agree in writing to pay it. We're not agreeing. Cross it out and write that you're not paying that. I'm only paying my co-insurance, my co-payments, and my deductible. That's what you're obligated under your agreement with your insurance company. So the insurance company has an agreement with the provider, and the insurance company has an agreement with you. And your agreement is when I go in, I'm gonna pay my co-payment. I'm gonna meet my deductible before y'all start paying 100%. I'm going to pay my co-insurance amount until my out-of-pocket limit is this much. That's your agreements with the insurance company. So we're not agreeing to pay any more than those things. But we don't know that if we don't read. Every time I talk to y'all, I'm going to tell y'all to read. I know it's hard. Everybody don't do it. But the devil is in the details. The information is there. People are just not reading. Now, some of this y'all don't know, like the part I just told you about the agreement between the health insurance company and the provider. But that's, if y'all don't take none away from the day, when y'all go to the doctor, ask for the forms. Don't do that online sign in on your phone. You might have to go 15 or 20 minutes early, get the forms, read the forms, and cross that out. I go through, so people look, I go places. I'm gonna talk about this in the contracts one, different places. When you are handed a pre-printed contract, you are allowed to cross it out. Now watch this. Sometimes, depending on what it is, they may say, well, we're not going to accept it crossed out. You have to determine then, are you going to do business with them with whatever the problem is that you're trying to cross out? But people think because they're handed this pre-printed form that they have to agree to what's in there, and you don't. If you start crossing out and you initial, and I do that at certain places. Now, 9 times out of 10, the person that's standing on the other side of the counter, they don't, they don't have the authority to pass on what you're crossing out. Like when you go to the doctor's office and you cross that out like that, the girl you hand it to, she gonna scan it in. They just gonna scan it in. Then the billing office is gonna see. Now the reason they don't say nothing about it is because they know what their contracts say. They know I don't have to pay the overage. They probably back there wondering how I know this, right? But I'm been a healthcare attorney, so I know this. But there's other situations where you're handed a pre-printed document, contract, whatever, you don't have to agree. You can cross it out. People just don't know they can cross out on there, and they can initial, they can write on the side the parts they don't want to agree with. That's an important. Oh, let me say this about health insurance premiums, because sometimes they can be based on your health. To the best you can, this is crazy and really hard to say. Stay healthy or get healthy, right? We got to live healthier lifestyles because a lot of the premiums are based. So when you live, okay, if you work for a big company, say I work for Caterpillar, I work for some big company, right? The premium for that company is based on the health of that group, you and your coworkers. That's why they got all these intervention programs. That's why they got all this stay healthy, go walking, do this, do that. That's why they got all this stuff. They're trying to get the group healthier. So the overall premiums and what the business is paying is cheaper, because we only paying a part of it. Our job is paying a lot of our health care premium. So stay healthy. And then a lot of times you are left down to your genetics. You can't overcome your genetics, but you should know what they are. Now, everybody's heard of ancestry, and that's really just your ethnicity history. It's that. I used 23andMe because it gives you a whole bunch of health history. It's going to tell you stuff about yourself you either didn't know or you figured but wasn't sure about. For instance, now I'll wrap up with this, and then producer, if we can, we'll finish at 7:15, 6 more minutes. Here I go. My 23andMe told me that I am, that I'm more likely, that I'm 5% more likely to weigh more than the average person. It told me that I had more muscle mass than the average woman. Okay, side note, I took a body scan and I do have 3 times more muscle than the average woman. What does that mean? in terms of my weight. Because whenever I go to the doctor's like, well, we just need to get your weight down a little. We need to get your weight down a little. That's going to be hard for me if I got 3 times more muscle than the average woman. The weight that they telling me I need to be at is the weight for an average person. All these numbers they giving you when you go to the doctor is an average person. And not to sound any type of way, but for some of us in these communities, they not the average person in our community. So we never gonna hit the number, okay? So it also told me that whether or not I eat a high fat diet or low fat diet, my weight is going to remain the same. That was key for me because before I knew this information and years of dieting, I was cutting fat. But once I took that genetic test and found out for me, it doesn't matter if I cut fat. That's not where I'm going to lose the weight. Carbs is my issue. That confirmed it for me. 23andMe told me a lot of stuff just in that vein. It verified that I was lactose intolerant. It told me a lot of things. I can't tell y'all everything. It has been eye-opening, and it's helped me understand myself better. So when I go to the doctor, because you kind of know yourself, we know ourselves, right? But it confirmed a lot of things. And now I'm not as frustrated about why can't I lose the weight I want to lose or try to lose the weight or whatever. It'll confirm a lot of things for you. Then that helps you manage your health better. It's something I use. I still use it. I took that test probably 7 or 8 years ago, but I still have the 23andMe app. I still go through it. Now, I know I don't have the BRCA gene. I know I don't have the Parkinson's gene. I know I don't have the Alzheimer's gene. What does that do? That gives me some kind of relief. I'm not sitting here worried because remember when I said you can get a long-term care rider? Now, I wouldn't tell my doctor I took this test and I wouldn't give it to nobody else. You don't want it in your medical record. But if you take this test and you see you have the Parkinson's gene, the Alzheimer's gene, or something like that, you may want to put a long-term care rider on your insurance. So that's another reason to consider getting the test. A lot of people feel a type of way about getting the test because of genetic information being out there and all that kind of stuff. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think they got people's genetic code captured anyway. I think we do so many things out here in life. They got our genetic code captured some kind of way anyway. But beyond that, the conspiracy theory part, I'm out here trying to manage my health. I'm trying to make healthcare decisions. I'm trying to get healthcare insurance. And so I said healthcare is about risk. You can be better informed about your risk when you know and you have more information about yourself. So you got to fight against the healthy lifestyle. We got to eat less cheeseburgers and chicken, and I got to drink less Pepsi and all that kind of stuff, right? But we also have to consider our genetics. And like I said, I would keep that information private to the extent that you could, meaning sometimes I've slipped up and told them, I got 23andMe. You don't want them to put that in the notes because you don't ever want that subpoenaed and you don't want your insurance company to ask for it, right? And so that's my part on that. It's 7:13. Producers, do we have a question? I don't think I see one. So, once again, and I ran over this time and still, I got to most of it. I wanted to talk about the marketplace and everything. But if you guys want another show like this, just send, do a Facebook comment or put it on YouTube. If I forget anything, what I decided to do is I need to go live and then add in the parts that I forgot. But y'all, it's just such a busy life out here. I'm so excited to be here. I hope this was helpful to you guys. You can schedule a 20-minute consult. I see it flashing across the screen. You can schedule that. And we can talk about any services that you might need. And yeah, I think that's it. I appreciate everybody. I enjoy doing these every week. I hope the information is helpful and it helps you guys at least think about things differently and kind of see things in a different light and, definitely act on it in a way that's beneficial to you in your life. So next week, I'm going to do the contract episode where I talk about everyday contracts like leases and auto purchase agreements and different things like that. Just contracts, what you guys need to know just on a basic level when you're signing something. What do these certain paragraphs mean? So I'm not going to go through an entire contract, but I'm going to pull certain paragraphs out and say, when you're reviewing a contract very quickly, these are the highlights. Look at these things so you know what rights are you giving up? What rights are you getting? What are you agreeing to? What does it mean once you sign? What if it means What does it mean if you don't sign? Those are the kinds of things we're going to talk about as a way to just further give you information about what you're signing and what you're doing and how to protect yourself. So everybody have a good day, a good weekend. I'll see you guys next week.